My name is Amelia. I am 32 years old now. But this story started when I was younger. It started in a small town. A town where everyone knew everyone. Where life moved slowly. Too slowly for me. I grew up in a small house with my parents and my younger brother. Our house was full of love, but it was not full of money. My father worked hard in a factory. My mother cleaned houses. They worked all day. Their hands were rough. Their faces were often tired, but they always smiled at me and my brother. They wanted a good life for us. I had a big dream. My dream was not small. It was huge. It lived in my heart every day. I wanted to live in America. I saw it in movies. Big cities, bright lights, tall buildings, so many people, so many chances. In my small town, there were no chances. You finished school. You got a simple job. You got married. You lived in a small house. Your life was the same as your parents' life. I loved my parents, but I did not want their life. I wanted more. I wanted a different life, for me and for them. I wanted to earn money. I wanted to help them. I wanted them to stop working so hard. I finished school. I got a job in a small shop. I sold bread and cakes. Every day was the same. I smiled at the customers. I gave them their change. I watched the clock on the wall. Tick, tock, tick, tock. My life was ticking away. In the evenings, I went home. I gave my small salary to my mother. It helped a little, but it was not enough. The dream of America was always in my mind. A bright, shining light. I tried to get a visa, the legal way. I went to the embassy in the capital city. It was a long bus ride. I waited in a long line for hours. I gave them my papers. They asked me many questions. Why do you want to go to America? What will you do there? Do you have enough money? I answered honestly. I told them about my dream. I told them I wanted to work hard, but my answers were not good enough. They looked at my papers. They saw I had no special skills. They saw I had no money in the bank. They said no. They gave me a piece of paper, a rejection. My heart felt heavy, like a stone. I tried again the next year, and the year after that. Every time the answer was no. No, no, no. The word felt like a wall I could not climb. My dream was on the other side of the wall. I felt so close, but so far away. I started to lose hope. The light of my dream started to get smaller, fainter. Maybe my life was meant to be small. Maybe I should just accept it. The thought made my chest feel tight. I did not want to accept it. One evening, I was talking to my friend Lena. She worked in a cafe. She knew many people. I told her about my failed visa attempts. I told her I felt trapped. I was almost crying. Lena listened quietly. She held my hand. Then she looked at me with serious eyes. "Amelia," she said softly, "there is another way, but it is risky. It is a difficult way." I looked at her. "What way? I will do anything." She hesitated. "I know someone. Her cousin went to America." She married an American man. It was an arrangement, a business deal. He got money. She got a visa. My heart started beating fast. Marriage, a business deal. It sounded crazy. It sounded wrong. But that's not real, I whispered. No, Lena said. It is not a real marriage. It is just a paper marriage. After a few years, you get your permanent visa. Then you get a divorce. It's just a service. I was silent. I thought about it. Marrying a stranger. Lying to the government. It was scary. It felt dishonest. My parents taught me to be honest, to be a good person. But then I thought about my life. The small shop. The slow clock. The tired faces of my parents. The no from the embassy. The wall. This deal felt like a door in that wall. A secret door. Is it safe? I asked Lena. Sometimes, she said. Sometimes not. You have to be careful. The man, you don't know him. It's a big risk, Amelia. A very big risk. I went home that night. I could not sleep. I lay in my bed. I looked at the ceiling. I thought about the risk. A stranger. A fake marriage. A life of lies. It felt like a deal with the devil. But what was the price? And what was the prize? The prize was my dream. A new life. A chance to help my family. The price. I did not know the price. Not really. But I felt so desperate. Desperation is a powerful feeling. It makes you do things you never thought you would do. I told Lena I wanted to know more. She gave me a name. An email address. The man's name was David. Lena's friend said he was quiet. He kept to himself. He had done this before. It was just a business for him. My hands were shaking when I wrote the email. I wrote it in simple English. I told him who I was. I told him what I wanted. I felt ashamed. I felt scared. I pressed the send button. My heart was pounding. It felt like I had just jumped off a cliff. He replied the next day. His email was short, cold. It was all about business. He told me the price. It was a lot of money. Money I did not have. He said I had to pay him in parts. Some before the marriage. More after I arrived in America. He said we would live together in his apartment. We had to pretend we were a real couple. We had to fool the immigration officers. He sent a list of rules. Rule number 1, this is not real. Rule number 2, we are roommates, not friends. Rule number 3, my life is my life. Your life is your life. Do not ask personal questions. The money was the first problem. I had some small savings, but it was not nearly enough. I had to tell my parents. I was so scared. I knew they would be angry. I knew they would be worried. I sat with them at our small kitchen table. My hands were cold. I told them everything. About the rejections. About my lost hope. And then about David. About the marriage deal. My mother started to cry softly. My father's face became hard, like stone. No, my father said. His voice was quiet, but strong. Absolutely not. This is dangerous, Amelia. You are not selling yourself for a piece of paper. I'm not selling myself, I said, my voice rising. I am buying a future for me, for all of us. I can make good money there. I can send it home. You and Mom can stop working so hard. We can fix the roof. We can have a better life. A life built on a lie is not a better life, my mother whispered through her tears. What if this man is a bad person? What if he hurts you? We will be so far away. We cannot protect you. We argued for a long time. They begged me not to do it. I begged them to understand. I felt like I was tearing their hearts apart, and my own heart too. In the end, they saw the desperation in my eyes. They saw that my dream was stronger than my fear, stronger than their fear. With heavy hearts, they agreed to help. My father took all the money they had saved for their old age. It was a small amount, but it was everything they had. We borrowed more money from my aunt. It was a huge debt, a heavy weight on all of us. I sent the first payment to David, a man I had never met, a man who lived across the world. It felt unreal. I was now tied to this stranger. The deal was made. A few months later, I flew to America to meet him. Just for a few days. We had to get married. My parents came with me to the airport in my country. My mother held me so tight. Please be careful, my child, she cried. My father just looked at me. His eyes were full of worry and sadness. Call us every day, he said. I promised I would. Walking away from them was one of the hardest things I have ever done. I felt a terrible guilt. Was I being selfish? Was I making a huge mistake? But I was on the path now. There was no turning back. I arrived in a big American city. It was loud, fast, overwhelming. Everything was new and strange. I took a taxi to a small hotel. David was going to meet me there. I waited in the lobby. My hands were sweating. What would he be like? Was he a monster? Then a man walked in. He was about 40 years old, not tall, not short. He had thin brown hair. He wore simple clothes. He looked normal. He looked a little tired. He looked at me. Amelia, he asked. His voice was quiet. Yes, I said, David. He nodded. He didn't smile. We just stood there for a moment in awkward silence. This was the man I was going to marry. A complete stranger. We went to a small cafe. We talked. But it wasn't a real conversation. He gave me instructions. He told me about the marriage process. We needed to go to the city office tomorrow. He gave me a folder of papers. It was a script, our love story. He had written it all out. How we met online in a book club, our first date, our shared love for old movies. It was all a lie, a detailed, carefully written lie. You must learn this, he said. Every word. They will ask you questions. Separately, our answers must match. He was not mean, but he was cold, like a business partner. There was no warmth in his eyes. He talked about the marriage like it was a project, a task to be completed. I felt like an object, a piece of a puzzle in his business plan. The next day, we went to the city office. It was a gray, boring building. There was no white dress, no flowers, no music, no family, just me and David. Standing in front of a man in a suit, we said the words, "I do." The words felt empty in my mouth, false. The man pronounced us husband and wife. David put a simple gold ring on my finger. It felt cold and heavy. I was now Mrs. Amelia Miller. But I was not a wife. I was a client. He paid the fee. We walked out, just like that. I was a married woman. David walked me back to my hotel. "Okay," he said. "Now you go back to your country. You apply for the spouse visa. With our marriage certificate, they will say yes. It will take a few months. When you get the visa, you will send the next payment. Then you can come here to live." And that was it. No congratulations. No kind words. He just turned and walked away. I stood on the sidewalk of the big, strange city. I looked at the cold ring on my finger. I felt a deep, profound loneliness. What had I done? I had my paper, my marriage certificate, but I felt more trapped than ever before. I wanted a new life, but I didn't know the price would be my happiness. I didn't know the price would be a piece of my soul. The next few months were a blur of paperwork and waiting. The spouse visa application was easy. With the marriage certificate, the embassy said yes. It was strange. All those years of no, because I was just me. Now, because I was David's wife on paper, the door opened. It felt unfair, wrong, but it was my ticket. I told my parents the visa was approved. My mother cried again. But this time, I wasn't sure if they were happy tears or sad tears. Maybe both. We had a small farewell party. My family, my aunt, my friend Lena. Everyone tried to be happy for me, but I could see the worry in their eyes. They looked at me differently now. I was a married woman, but my husband was not there. It was a strange, silent secret everyone knew, but nobody talked about. Lena hugged me tightly. "Be strong, Amelia," she whispered. "Remember why you are doing this." I packed my life into 2 suitcases. My clothes, some photos of my family, a few books. It didn't look like much. It was hard to say goodbye. Leaving my home, my family, my whole world, it was so painful. But the dream of a better life pulled me forward, like a strong current in a river. I arrived in America for the second time. This time, I was not going to a hotel. I was going to my new home, David's apartment. He met me at the airport. Again, he was polite, but cold. He carried one of my suitcases. We took the train to his apartment. We didn't talk much. The city was still big and loud. But now, it didn't seem as exciting. It seemed lonely. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of an old building. It was small. There was a living room, a small kitchen, and 2 bedrooms. It was very clean, very tidy, but it had no personality. The walls were white. There was no art, no photos. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a hotel room. David showed me my room. It was small, just a bed, a small closet, and a window that looked out at a brick wall. "This is your room," he said. "My room is at the end of the hall. The kitchen and bathroom are shared. Clean up after yourself." He pointed to a list of rules taped to the kitchen wall. Rules about cleaning, rules about noise, rules about guests. Rule number 7, no guests are allowed, ever. I put my suitcases down in my room. This was my life now, living with a stranger who was my husband. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. I sat on the bed that was not our bed, the room that was not our room. I was thousands of miles from my family. I was completely alone. I cried silently, so he would not hear me. Life with David was quiet and empty. We were like two ghosts living in the same house. We rarely saw each other. He worked long hours at an office job. I didn't know what he did exactly. He never talked about it. Remember rule number 3, do not ask personal questions. I got a job at a coffee shop. It was a simple job, but it was my own. It gave me a reason to leave the silent apartment. It gave me a little bit of my own money. Every morning, I would wake up early. I would get ready quietly. I would leave before he woke up. In the evening, I would come home. Sometimes he was there, sitting on the sofa, watching TV. He would nod at me. I would nod back. Then I would go to my room. I often ate dinner alone in my room. The silence in the apartment was heavy. It was not a peaceful silence. It was a tense silence, full of things we could not say. The hardest part was the lie. We had to pretend to be a real couple for the government. We had a big immigration interview coming up in a few months. It was the most important step. If we failed the interview, they would know our marriage was fake. I could be deported. He could get into big trouble. The fear of that interview was always there. A dark cloud over my head. So we had to practice. A few nights a week, we would sit at the small kitchen table. He would test me. "What is my favorite color?" he would ask. "Blue," I would answer from the script. "What side of the bed do I sleep on?" "The right side." "What did we do for my last birthday?" "We went to that Italian restaurant you like." I knew all the fake answers, but I knew nothing real about him. I didn't know if he was happy or sad. I didn't know his dreams. I didn't know his fears. And he knew nothing about me. He never asked. Sometimes we had to take pictures together. To create fake evidence of our love, we would go to a park. He would put his arm around me stiffly. We would both force a smile for the camera. The smiles never reached our eyes. We looked like two strangers in a photo, which is exactly what we were. I sent those pictures to my family. "See, I am happy," I wrote. Another lie. I made one friend at the coffee shop. Her name was Maria. She was from Mexico. She was bright and funny. She made me laugh. It felt so good to laugh. She was curious about my husband. "Why does he never come to the coffee shop?" she asked. "Oh, he's very busy," I would say. The lies were easy to say now, but they felt heavy in my heart. One day, Maria invited me and my husband to her house for dinner. "I want to meet this mysterious David," she said, laughing. I felt a panic inside me. I made an excuse. "He is sick," I said. The lies were building, creating a wall around me. I couldn't let anyone get too close. They might see the truth. Living with David was like walking on eggshells. He was a creature of habit. Everything had to be in its perfect place. One time, I left a cup on the kitchen counter. He got angry. Not loud angry, but cold angry. "The rule is to clean up after yourself immediately," he said. His voice was sharp. I felt like a stupid child. I apologized and quickly washed the cup. I felt so small. He never hurt me physically, but he controlled everything. He controlled the space. He controlled the rules. He controlled our fake story. I felt like I was living in his world, not my world. I had no power. I had a visa. I had a job, but I was not free. The cage was bigger now. It was a whole new country, but it was still a cage made of secrets and lies. I sent money home to my parents every month. This was the one good thing, the one true thing. My father used the money to fix the roof. My mother stopped cleaning so many houses. They told me on the phone that they were proud of me. Their words were like a small light in my dark world. I was helping them. This was why I was doing this. I had to remember that. I held onto that reason like a life raft in a stormy sea. The day of the immigration interview arrived. I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't eat breakfast. My hands were shaking. David seemed calm, but I saw a little bit of sweat on his forehead. We dressed up nicely, like a happy, normal couple. On the train ride to the immigration office, he quizzed me one last time. My mother's name, Susan. My favorite movie, The Godfather. I knew it all. But I was so scared I would forget. The immigration office was another cold, gray building. We sat in a waiting room. We didn't talk. I tried to breathe deeply. David put his hand on my knee. It was a planned gesture, part of the act, but his hand was cold, and it didn't feel comforting. It felt strange. Finally, they called our names. We were interviewed by a woman with sharp eyes. She looked at us. She looked at our file. She smiled, but her smile was not warm. It was a professional smile. She asked us to tell her our story, how we met. We told the lie, the story from the script. David spoke most of the time. His voice was steady. I just nodded and added small details. Then she said the words I was dreading. "Okay, now I need to speak with each of you, separately." My heart jumped into my throat. This was the real test. They took David to another room. The woman stayed with me. She asked me more questions, the same questions. What is David's favorite color? What side of the bed does he sleep on? I answered them all. My voice was a little shaky. Then she asked new questions. Questions not in the script. What did you give your husband for his last birthday? My mind went blank for a second. We hadn't prepared for this. Then I remembered a detail from our fake story. We liked old movies. I bought him a special edition box set of his favorite old movies, I said. It was a good lie. I hoped it was. She asked more questions. Does your husband snore? What does he eat for breakfast? Who cleans the bathroom? I tried to answer them logically, plausibly. I felt like I was taking the most important exam of my life. An exam about a man I did not know. Then they brought David back. They asked him the same new questions. I held my breath. Did he say the same things? Did our lies match? The woman looked at her notes. She looked at us for a long, silent moment. My heart was pounding so loud, I was sure she could hear it. Then she closed the folder. She smiled. A real smile this time. Congratulations, she said. Your green card is approved. You will receive it in the mail. A wave of relief washed over me. It was so powerful, I felt dizzy. We did it. We passed. We fooled her. Outside the building, I started to cry. Tears of relief, tears of stress. David just stood there. Good, he said. The hardest part is over. He didn't comfort me. He didn't hug me. We just went home. On the train, we were two silent strangers again. The act was over, for now. I got my green card in the mail a few weeks later. A small plastic card. It gave me the right to live and work in America. It was my prize, my dream. I held it in my hand. It felt heavy. It felt like it was made of lies. It was supposed to be a moment of joy. But I just felt empty. I had what I wanted. But I was not happy. I had a new life. But I did not like this new life. It was built on a foundation of dishonesty and loneliness. I had made my deal, and now I was living with the consequences. Every single day. The years passed slowly after the interview. 2 years. That was the deal. I had to stay married to David for 2 years to get my permanent green card. After that, we could get a divorce. 2 years felt like a lifetime. My life fell into a routine. A gray, colorless routine. Wake up. Go to work at the coffee shop. Come home to the silent apartment. Go to my room. Eat alone. Sleep alone. Repeat. The apartment never felt like home. It was always David's space. I was just a temporary guest, a long-term renter who shared a last name with the landlord. I continued to send money to my parents. That was my only joy. They were doing better. My brother was able to go to a better school. My father didn't have to work overtime anymore. When I spoke to them on the phone, I always pretended to be happy. How is your husband? My mother would ask. He is good. He is working hard, I would say. I couldn't tell her the truth. I couldn't tell her that my husband was a stranger, that we barely spoke, that I cried myself to sleep most nights. The lie had to continue. For them, my friendship with Maria from the coffee shop grew. She was my only connection to a normal life. We would have lunch together. We would talk about our lives, or she would talk about her life. I would listen. I loved hearing about her family, her boyfriend, their little arguments, and their happy moments. It felt like watching a movie of a life I could never have. I was always careful. I never shared details about my own life. It was too risky. The wall of lies around me was thick and high. One day, Maria was very excited. "My sister is getting married," she announced. "You have to come to the wedding, Amelia. And you must bring David. I will not accept any excuses this time." My heart sank. A wedding. A celebration of real love. How could I go? How could I take David? He would never agree. He didn't do social events. It was not part of our business deal. I tried to make an excuse. "Oh, Maria, I'm not sure we can." But she looked at me with such hopeful eyes. She was my only friend. I couldn't say no. "Okay," I said, my voice weak. "I will ask him." That evening, I gathered all my courage. I knocked on David's bedroom door. He opened it, looking annoyed. "What is it?" he asked. I explained about the wedding. I told him my friend Maria really wanted to meet him. I was so nervous. I expected him to say no immediately. He was silent for a moment. He looked at me. "Is this important for you?" he asked. His question surprised me. He had never asked me what was important to me before. "Yes," I said quietly. "She is my only friend here." He sighed, a long, tired sigh. "Okay," he said. "One night, we will go for a few hours. But we have to be careful. We are a happy married couple. Understand?" "Yes," I said, a little shocked that he had agreed. "I understand." Going to the wedding with David was one of the strangest experiences of my life. We dressed up. I wore a nice dress I bought specially. He wore a suit. For the first time, we looked like a real couple. We walked into the wedding hall. It was full of music and laughter and people dancing. It was so full of life. It was the opposite of our silent apartment. Maria ran to us and hugged me. "You came, and this is David," she said, smiling widely. David shook her hand. He even smiled a little. A small, stiff smile. But it was a smile. We had to pretend for the whole evening. We sat at a table with Maria's family. We had to make small talk. We had to answer questions about our life. David was surprisingly good at it. He talked about our fake hobbies, our fake life together. He put his hand on my back sometimes. The gestures felt practiced. But to everyone else, they probably looked real. I watched Maria dance with her new husband. They looked so happy, so in love. Their eyes were shining. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, a deep, aching sadness. This was what a real marriage looked like. Full of joy, full of love, not a cold business contract, not a silent apartment. David must have seen the sadness on my face. "Are you okay?" he whispered. His voice was softer than usual. I just nodded. I couldn't speak. I was afraid I would start crying. Later that evening, they played a slow song. couples went to the dance floor. "We should dance," David said. It was not a question. It was a command. We had to keep up the act. He led me to the dance floor. He put one hand on my waist. I put my hand on his shoulder. We started to move slowly to the music. It was the first time we had ever been this close. I could feel the warmth of his hand through my dress. It felt strange, uncomfortable, but also human. I was so used to him being cold and distant. This closeness was confusing. We didn't talk while we danced. We just moved in a circle with the other couples. I looked around. I saw smiling faces, people whispering to each other. I looked up at David. He was not looking at me. He was looking over my head. His face was unreadable. Who was this man? This stranger who was my husband? Did he have a heart? Did he ever feel lonely too? When the song ended, we walked back to our table. "I'm tired," David said. "I think we should go now." I was relieved. The pretending was exhausting. We said our goodbyes to Maria. She hugged me again. "It was so wonderful to finally meet your husband," she said. "You two are a lovely couple." Her words felt like a lie. We took a taxi home. The silence in the taxi was different this time. It wasn't angry. It was just quiet. I kept thinking about the dance, the brief moment of closeness. It had unsettled me. It made the line between our fake life and real feelings blurry. When we got back to the apartment, I went to my room. I was about to close the door when David spoke. "Amelia." I stopped and turned. "You looked nice tonight," he said quietly. Then he turned and went into his own room. He closed the door. I stood there, stunned. It was the first compliment he had ever given me. It was a small thing, just 4 words, but it felt huge. It was a tiny crack in the wall between us. I went to my room and sat on my bed. My heart was confused. I hated this fake life. But tonight, for a few moments, it had felt a little less fake. And that scared me more than anything. The wedding changed something between us. A very small something. But it was there. The silence in the apartment was a little less heavy. Sometimes we would have a small conversation in the kitchen. Not about personal things, just about the weather, or something on the news. It was not friendship, but it was not complete emptiness either. One evening, I came home from work feeling very sick. I had a high fever. My head was spinning. I could barely walk. I went straight to my room and collapsed on my bed. I felt terrible, and so alone. I wished my mother was there to take care of me. A few hours later, I heard a soft knock on my door. It was David. "I heard you come home early," he said. "Are you all right?" "I'm sick," I mumbled from under my blanket. He went away. I thought that was it. But a few minutes later, he came back. He had a glass of water and some medicine. He put it on the small table next to my bed. He also had a bowl of soup. "I made some soup," he said awkwardly. "You should eat something." I was so surprised. David had cooked for me. I sat up. The soup was simple, but it was warm. It felt good. "Thank you," I whispered. My voice was hoarse. He just stood in the doorway. "You should rest," he said. Then he left. I ate the soup. It was the kindest thing he had ever done for me. Maybe he wasn't just a cold businessman. Maybe there was a person inside, a person with a little bit of kindness. This thought was confusing. It was easier when I could just see him as my client, as a part of the deal. Seeing him as a person made everything more complicated. The 2 years were almost over. Soon, I would get my permanent green card. Soon, we could get a divorce. The end of our deal was near. I should have been happy. I should have been excited. Freedom was so close, but my feelings were mixed. I was used to this strange life. I was used to the quiet apartment. I was even used to David's presence. The thought of leaving, of starting all over again, completely alone, was scary. This fake life was the only life I knew in this country. The day my permanent green card arrived in the mail was a quiet day. I opened the envelope. There it was, a new plastic card. It meant I was a permanent resident of the United States. I was free. I could stay here forever. I didn't need David anymore. I walked to the living room. David was sitting on the sofa, reading a book. I held up the card. "It came," I said. He looked up. He nodded slowly. "Good," he said. "Our contract is finished." His words were so direct, so businesslike. Contract finished. Just like that. 2 years of our lives reduced to a contract. A part of me felt hurt. After everything, was that all I was to him? A contract. But another part of me knew he was right. That was exactly what it was. "I will call a lawyer tomorrow," he said. "We can start the divorce process. It should be simple." He looked back down at his book. He was ready to move on. I stood there for a moment. "Okay," I said. I went back to my room. I closed the door. I was finally free, but I didn't feel free. I felt empty and lost. The deal was done. The dream was achieved, but I had lost myself somewhere along the way. We signed the divorce papers a few weeks later. It was just as cold and impersonal as our wedding. Just signing papers in a lawyer's office. And just like that, it was over. I was no longer Mrs. Amelia Miller. I was Amelia again. Just Amelia. I started looking for a new place to live. A small room in a shared house. It was all I could afford. Packing my 2 suitcases again felt strange. I was leaving the silent apartment, leaving this chapter of my life behind. On my last day, David helped me carry my suitcases down to the taxi. We stood on the sidewalk, just like we did after our wedding, all that time ago. It felt like a lifetime had passed. "Well," I said, I didn't know what else to say. "Thank you." "For what?" he asked. "For the deal," I said. "It got me here." He nodded. "You paid for it," he said. "It was a transaction." He was always so practical, so unsentimental. I looked at him. this stranger who had been my husband. "I hope you have a good life, David," I said. For the first time, he looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes, something I had never seen before. It looked like sadness. "You too, Amelia," he said. His voice was very quiet. The taxi came. I got in. As the car pulled away, I looked back. He was still standing there, on the sidewalk, watching me leave. And for a moment, I felt like I was leaving something behind. Not just an apartment, but a person. A strange, complicated person who had been a part of my life for 2 years. My new life started in a small room. It was not much, but it was mine. It was honest. There were no secrets in that room, no lies. I continued to work at the coffee shop. I still saw my friend Maria. Now, I could slowly start to tell her the truth. Not everything at once, but little by little. She was shocked, but she was a good friend. She listened. She understood. She didn't judge me. Having a real, honest friend made me feel less alone. Life was not easy. I worked hard. I paid my bills. I was still alone. But it was a different kind of alone. It was not the heavy, lonely silence of David's apartment. It was a peaceful alone, an honest alone. I could be myself. I didn't have to pretend anymore. The weight of the big lie was gone. I felt lighter. I learned a lot from my deal. I learned that shortcuts in life often have hidden costs. I wanted a new life so badly, but I didn't think about the price. The price was my peace, my honesty. 2 years of my youth. Was it worth it? I don't know. I can help my family. I have a chance for a better future. But I will always have the memory of the lie, the scar of the fake marriage. Now I am building a real life. Slowly, one day at a time. I am taking an English class to improve my language. I am thinking about going to a community college. Maybe I can get a better job one day. A job I really love. My dreams are smaller now, but they are more real. I don't dream of big cities and bright lights anymore. I dream of simple things. A happy home, real friends, and maybe one day real love. A love that is not a business deal. A love that is honest and true. If you are listening to my story, maybe you have a big dream too. Dreams are good. They give us hope. They make us move forward. But please, be careful about how you follow your dreams. Be careful of deals that seem too easy. A true life, an honest life, is more valuable than any visa or any amount of money. Building a life takes time. It takes hard work. There are no shortcuts to real happiness. It's okay to feel lost or scared. It's okay to make mistakes. I made a very big one. But you can always start again. You can always choose to be honest. You can always choose yourself. I am learning to forgive myself for my desperation, for my mistake. And I am learning to build a new life, a true life. And you can do this too. Whatever your dream is, build it with truth. Build it with heart. Keep going.